Well, hello, Jill Novak here with my friend Jody DiCastri.
I
Jody
know.
and I just finished a yoga teacher training, and it was a difficult one to launch and deliver during COVID. And yet there were some amazing just lessons that we learned and outcomes, and these beautiful souls who are going out into the world as yoga teachers feel so I don't know, like unique and powerful and strong. And Jody and I just wanted to have a chat today, or I guess I was dying to have a chat with Jody about what that all means. I don't know, Jody, can you give us a little bit of context to start us off?
Well, first of all, you often say that when we have chats that this should be recorded. This could be a podcast. So we were actually talking on the phone and then we just stopped talking so that we could kind of like get all the good stuff on here to share. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're a week out of having just wrapped up our second group of teacher trainers. So we did a group in 2019 and obviously we just finished this one in 2021. Um, And yeah, it was interesting in that we first thought we couldn't run it, and then we started on Zoom, which is how we all met, which is not typical in how you would want a teacher training to begin.
Hmm.
And then we did 2 modules online, which went fairly well. So you and I were kind of testing, more me than you, but I was for sure testing my capacity and how I could be effective, just as effective as I wanted to be live, that like we'd been in the past. So we kind of put that to the test, and then we finally met everybody live not until March. So we began in January and then didn't begin our live teacher training until March. And it was unique. I agree with you. It was a special, the group was smaller. It was more intimate than the one we'd done in 2019. So I think that had a bit to do with it. And an interesting time to be training yoga teachers to be yoga teachers in a pandemic when we couldn't even practice yoga.
Yeah, we said
Like we
that.
had to pinky swear with Peter Guthrie, the local MLA. It's like, okay, we'll be 6 feet apart and we'll wear masks, and we
Yeah.
honored that. We did. You and I didn't even teach any classes at all.
No. You
And
didn't come into the yoga teacher training and then like hit your mat and then sweat next to the person beside you, as would often happen in a teacher training, because that modality, and that's what felt interesting too, isn't it? Is that we're teaching people how to be yoga teachers in a world that doesn't even yet understand how yoga is going to be delivered when we open up.
Mhm.
Because
And
even right now, as you're watching the rules change and things open up in quotes, you're still being told as a studio owner that it's going to be a while before you can get back to like having 30 people in your yoga studio.
Yeah, and even if we're told that we can have 30 people in the yoga studio, we need our clients and our memberships confidence and comfort level to equal that. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that we can't predict. But I think the interesting thing, Joe, is that because we couldn't teach yoga asana,
Mhm.
because that was a restriction and a limitation to how we rolled out this program, we still taught the poses. We still taught, the Sanskrit of triangle pose and whatnot. But because we couldn't have the classes like we used to, we were kind of encouraged, I guess, to look at the other limbs in a way that we maybe wouldn't have.
Mhm.
And so, how do we then teach yoga and have those other limbs of yoga be as weighty as the asana limb?
I'm
And
just going to say the other limbs for a second so that everyone knows. So the yamas and niyamas are the ethical practices of yoga. And then we go to asana, which is the movement, pranayama, the breath, um, dharana, withdrawal of the senses, pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, dharana, single pointed focus, dhyana, meditation, and then the last one is samadhi, bliss. And yeah, like we needed to just really investigate the other limbs, didn't we?
Mhm. So that was definitely challenging. And I think it kind of put a spin on the teacher training in a way that our students and you and I as well are thinking like, what's ours to do in the world? Like,
Yeah.
what are we up to here? So, okay, you know how to teach yoga. That's obviously a skill that you can teach and you can learn and you can hone. And how do you do that? And there is a lot of practice in that. But I think it made all of us investigate what are we really up to? What is the thing that we have that's a gift that is given to us that we may or may not even be aware of, that we're polishing and refining so that we can sort of get to the business of sharing it with the world? And when we were talking on the phone call before this went to a recording, we were talking about the bit in us that needs to heal, or the part of us that has maybe some work to do, is the part that yoga teacher training always kind of cracks open. And then you kind of, that's when you get to the business of examining that in me, that it's going to heal me, is the thing that I am going to be most effective at out there.
Yeah.
And how those two things work together.
That was one of the biggest takeaways with this training. And it was almost like aha moments, wasn't it? Because we knew the Dharma part. We knew the idea that these 8 souls, which they proved so beautifully to us, each was going to deliver yoga in a very specific way.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. Oh my gosh. And it was fascinating to just watch their take on it, and the delivery, and who they think their audience is going to be, and how they want to bring this forth into the world. And then to just watch that sort of being honed and refined and discovered, really. And we knew that everyone had this gift in them that was meant to be delivered to the world. But I think that very last weekend, something happened where it was like, oh my gosh, like mic drop moment, aha, light bulbs going off. Sorry.
Speaking of things going off.
I know. Speaking of things, I just hung up on my son. We watched that exact gift that they had to give to the world was also what was going to heal them, just like you were just saying. And it made me want to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Like just understanding that connection, that it's so important to be able to define that gift, not only for the world to be able to receive it, but because it is the biggest catalyst for your own healing.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the time we can spend some energy on trying to figure out how to do something. So the example of becoming a yoga teacher, there's a certain amount of it that you do have to learn. You have to understand how to, sequence a class, or what the poses are effective at doing and the benefits and whatnot. And it's so interesting. It happens every time that we think the thing that we're signing up to learn how to do isn't, it's a byproduct of that piece that you're talking about. It's that I'm going to use that as the vehicle to deliver my Dharma, or that my life work, or what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the thing that moves that around for you. And that's the piece that I think is that we feel that we maybe can't even articulate. We don't even have words to know how to describe that. I think that's why yoga is so powerful, because we think it's about warrior 2, or balancing on our hands or head. And those things are great things, and we need to learn how to teach those and how to do those things. But the deeper piece to that is that yoga is what's going to kind of unlock, or the key that's going to turn that piece of you that helps you understand a deeper sense of yourself, so that you can use that as the medicine. And the poses are just the thing that help us administer the medicine.
We talked a lot about, especially with this group of teachers, the idea of a container. And the old container, the one that's not allowed to run anymore, is a yoga studio, a 1-hour class that's drop-in. There's a monthly drop-in, membership fee or whatever. Like there's sort of this idea that was prevalent in the world right before it shut down. And then we talked a lot in this training about what's the new container going to look like.
Yeah.
And these students trying to figure out what their container might be. Like, I don't know, do they want a longer class? Are they going to be teaching more workshop style? Can they see part of their paradigm being online? But just really allowing people to mess with the vehicle, right, of these poses and this idea of yoga, so that it doesn't have to fall under such a
rigid structure.
A rigid definition. Because you and I've been playing with the idea of a container or the idea of structure for a few years now, and noticing how powerful structure can be.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able to use this vehicle of yoga,
Mm-hmm.
if you can create a structure strong enough to deliver it.
And I don't know. I don't know how things are going to be when we get back to the studio and classes again with people, but my sense is that people are going to want to talk.
Yeah.
And how do we create opportunities for people to come to move their bodies, to breathe and to flow like we used to? But is there a responsibility of a yoga teacher, if we are sort of in the healing and the wellness industry, we're going to have to find ways to support people after all this. And so a yoga class might look like it does have some extension to it if you wanted that. Not everybody will want that or feel comfortable, but it's interesting to think about how all this whole paradigm is going to shift of what we knew before. And we've had a good long time to take a look at what was working and what isn't working. Even schools, like we can now see, like, yeah, actually, there's going to be a whole new component to online learning that was gifted to school systems. And I think we're no different than that.
Yeah.
How can we re-examine how we were offering yoga in a way that's going to best suit the student and actually have students receive the riches and the depth of yoga that often as teachers we felt like we couldn't do in a 60-minute flow class, right?
Well, a 60-minute flow class drop-in. So your community was shifting and changing every single class. And maybe that's the other piece, is that we discovered we had 8 souls that were with us for over a 6-month period, really, by the time everything got canceled and restarted and rescheduled. But there was the container or the structure of that training really created connection and really created community. Mm-hmm. And we started to discover this whole, I mean, maybe not discover, that's the wrong word, but we started to really harness the power of connection and community, mm-hmm. and understanding its value in what we're creating going forward. Mm-hmm. That perhaps there's a bigger need around whatever we create as the structure for how yoga is delivered has that component of community, or has that component of a place that you can connect into.
And what do the words community and connection mean to you, Joe? Like, does connection mean after class I talk to somebody in the lobby, or we go for a tea or a walk? Does it mean everybody sits in the class and, has kind of like a crisscross applesauce share? Like, what does it look like? Because in a teacher training, I think we do it with relative ease. There's an assumption that we're going to go long and deep, right?
Yes. People
don't know that about teacher training. Yeah. You're the person going, oh my gosh, what did I just sign up for? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
In a studio setting, I don't know. I'm curious about those 2 words, community and connection. I agree with you. They're going to be extremely needed. They're needed right now.
I don't know if there is an answer. The answer is a space that feels safe to share. The answer is a space that feels safe where you don't have to be perfect.
Yes.
The answer is a space where you can show up a mess, where you're allowed to show up in growth, so that you don't always have to kind of show up with your status quo, like in whatever role you're choosing to show up as. But I think you're right. Like, I'm not sure necessarily what the delivery is of community or connection, but I think that maybe that's a piece. And some teachers are going to be just really natural at that, especially if they're choosing to incorporate more than asana in the class. Like, maybe you're going to start seeing classes that are half asana and half meditation, half asana and half journaling, half asana and half, roundtable discussion. I don't know. Yeah. Walking? Did you say walking?
No, talking.
Talking,
Chit chat and converse with people, and
yeah. I've heard recently this idea that connection is the antidote to, I actually heard addiction.
Mhm.
Like the biggest healer for addiction is connection. And then you sort of look at that more, and it's also the healer for depression. It's the healer for loneliness. It's the healer for anxiety. It's the healer for self-worth.
One of the modules that Jill and I taught in our teacher training was we did one on Ayurveda and we did one on the Enneagram. And it was the first time that we went really deep with these two topics. So we did 25-hour modules on both of these topics. And I taught the one on the Enneagram. And the reason why I love it so much is exactly what Jill's saying, is that our key to healing and our key to understanding how we're to move forward in health and in wellness is to go back a little bit and kind of figure out, like, where did I come from? What happened to me? And to look at yourself, and yoga asks us to do that. It's one of the niyamas, the self-study, is to take a good hard look at habits and patterns and the why you are the way you are. And then and that's a lifelong journey. It's not like a check, one and done type of a thing.
Yeah.
It's, okay, here I am again, hi me. But once we kind of get a sense of ourselves, and once we can kind of see what we're up to, then we can start to look outward. And then we can start to look at our community. We can start to look at our friends and our family and the people that we choose to share our time and energy with. And the only way that we're going to be able to do the healing work of ourselves, the only way that's going to happen is if we reflect it to another.
Yeah.
And it's scary, isn't it, Jill?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's scary. It's so when we start talking about, like, can you imagine putting on a schedule like flow and chat? Like, people are going to say stuff like, I don't have time for that, or I'm not going to that class, or FYI, guys, I went to that one by accident. Right? It's like you thought you were going to yin and you accidentally went to like a hot, hard flow class.
And maybe this is where like the registered series is going to come in again, where you start to, because part of yoga is building resilience.
Yes.
Is like you come here to repeat this practice to become stronger. You come here to burn away old patterns, and like it's almost like in your movement you burn away the way you move usually in your day, and you create a new pathway of movement. And the more flexible we become in the body, the more flexible we become in our minds. The more strong we come in our body, the stronger we are in our emotions and our, container of self-worth. The more balanced we are in the body, maybe the more balanced we are in life. And those things, flexibility, strength, and balance, is what we come to practice in asana on the mat. But it's just really our playground for real life strength, balance, and flexibility.
Absolutely. I'm listening to a book right now, and I just sent you the same book on an audio book, and it's called What Happened to You. And Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey chat to each other about resiliency. And Dr. Perry says in this book, and I'm not all the way through it yet, but he says that resiliency is something we can build just like a muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to get to the part of the book where, how do we do that? And how do we, like you were saying earlier, how do we create a container because I think to be and to feel resilient, there has to be trust.
Yeah.
And there has to be some time. And those two things have to be present. For no one's going to just open up and start sharing and be super vulnerable right away. I know that to be true for me. I need some time in, and I need to know, like, that this is a trustworthy friendship or space.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, how do we hold the container for people to build that resiliency if it does in fact come from community? If we need each other to get strong, we need to be on the lookout for ways that we can create this for others. And trust and time, it's not going to happen right away. It's going to be one of those programs, Jill, that's like, okay, keep going. We know this is needed. We have to just trust, right?
And this is like, you and I are in conversation around this exact question right now, because we are we are trying to figure out what our mentorship program is for people who have gone through a yoga teacher training, for people who have done the work.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, like they're cracking open and they've finished their yoga teacher training, or maybe they didn't teach much this last year, or maybe their skills feel rusty, or maybe that sense of community or trust or whatever it is in themselves doesn't feel heightened. So you and I are in development, I guess, of our fall program around that, because we both wanted a place to land when we finished our first teacher training, where we felt like that community was there to help us keep stepping. Because sometimes that's what it is, isn't it? It's just like, where do I go so that I can kind of keep this ball slowly rolling and get the support I need to foster these new patterns, to anchor these routines, to whatever it is that keeps the ball rolling for you.
And one thing that came up a lot in our teacher training from the very first time we met live to the very last day was this idea of finding your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a lot of throat chakra work, didn't we?
Yeah. If we're talking about being vulnerable, if we're talking about sharing our stories and how we got to be where we are, there has to be sort of this strength around speaking that out.
Yeah.
And how do we create a program for people to get good at that?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not just talking about voice projection, like you need to talk louder. It's more than that, isn't it?
You need to feel that your words have importance, enough importance that you're willing to stand up on a podium or at the front of a class or in the space of teacher and share. And it was really important to both of us that you didn't come out of our yoga teacher training knowing all the exact things around Trikonasana, but not being confident enough to share. So when you come into Jill and Jody's teacher training, you are talking from day one.
Yeah, you're teaching your first day.
Yeah, you
getting up at the front of the very first day and you're sharing something.
Yeah, and I mean that's been something, but we learned something about that, didn't we? I mean, we went into this teacher training really being intentional about the fact that we did not want it to feel like Jill and Jody unzipped their brains and their history and practice and education and experience with yoga and tried to dump it onto you. We really tried to create a program where it's like, we're putting the key in you, we're going to turn it gently, and we're going to start to excavate what's in you. And I think that's still the premise of this mentorship program as we go forward in the fall.
Yeah, and I think the idea too that yes, finding your voice if you have to stand up and talk in front of other people, that's one aspect of your voice, but also finding your voice in the way that you can share something that's difficult or share something that maybe has lived in shame or it's kind of lived in the shadow part of you, and you can express it out. Others can hear it, and you are still needed, seen, and valued in that space.
Yeah.
That doesn't take away you sharing that part of you. I think the thing that blows me away so much when you and I sit in circle with other people is that when we share something that might seem scary or shameful, it always works the opposite that you think it's going to.
Yeah.
And
when the space is safe.
Oh, absolutely. You have to have trust, time, and safety. Yeah. But people can handle it.
Yeah.
We learned that. We learned that when someone shares something that just their body is just having a physiological experience of sharing something, and the other people are going, they might be crying with you, they might not be, but it's like, okay.
We can receive this.
We can receive this. It is okay. And what it does is it takes the weight off, and you might still hold the majority of it for sure, but just letting one little piece off and letting someone else go, hey, me too, or hey, thank you, or hey, I still see you, and you have not changed one bit to me. If anything, I see you braver and bigger for having shared that piece of your voice. that's the part that I think moves me every single time when we do yoga teacher trainings.
And this is where the asana becomes so important, because it is this conduit.
Yes.
As we start to sort of move and put breath into the body and be very, because yoga has a very specific paradigm of like, like we're going to move your body in all these ways. By the time you're done a yoga class, you will have moved all your major joints, moved all your major muscle groups, detoxified your organs, all that kind of stuff, like is the goal of this class. And in doing so, we get to enter into those deeper, more private spaces.
There's an access point through the asana. Yeah.
Yes, it's the access point, isn't it? And that's where the real work's being done. I mean, in the end, like we say, triangle's not the point. Triangle is the vehicle that gets us to this piece that you and I are talking about now. But
and sometimes when we get further down the line into yoga philosophy and yoga lifestyle, I know for me anyways, I can kind of think like, oh, asana, it's not as important. And then it's like, no, wait a second. It's the portal and it's the way in.
mm-hmm.
And it has to be. And in our society and Western culture, we place a lot of value and emphasis on movement and on physicality.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
an easy conduit.
Yeah, it's an easy way in. That's why the meditation step is just like, that's harder. Some people come in through that level, but most of us come in through the movement side or the breath side.
Yeah, we need that first. And you and I did too. Like we talk about our evolving friendship for the last 13 years, 12 or 13 years, like just how it was our portal of entry. And it has
14
been
years, by the way.
14?
Yeah, because our kids are 17.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
But that's just it, right? Like it has been our vehicle of change. It has been our vehicle of resilience. Yeah. It has been our vehicle of self-growth. Mm-hmm. And it has been the place where you and I have been able to practice sharing our voices, allowing our truth to be true or to surface or to be shared. Mm-hmm. And
so there's one more piece that you and I have talked a lot about in the previous teacher training in 2019, and then this one is this whole idea of collaboration.
Yeah.
And you and I, when we did this for the first time, when we decided we were going to host a teacher training, it kind of blew our minds. And we thought, oh yeah, Jill knows this, and Jody knows that, and Jody has a studio, and this time works in the season, and we're going to host this. And then all of a sudden we were like, whoa. We got up to actually deliver this program, and roll out the curriculum and the way we designed it. And it just never ceased to amaze us that was working together in this capacity was something that was really profound for both of us. And then again, this go around, we felt that same thing. And so now that we've had this, it's kind of like we had two babies, right? We had the 2019 baby, and then we just had the 2021 baby. And so we're a little bit more experienced. We know what we're up to a bit more than we did the first time.
But they have two different personalities.
Yeah, they're totally different babies. Yeah. The firstborn and then the second. Yeah. But one thing that we were speaking about the other day is that there's now been a number of people move through our program that we now hope that they can collaborate with each other, or they can find their vehicle, their Dharma, their niche, or the thing that really lights them up in our community or wherever they want to lay down some roots. And I think as a studio owner, I know historically in the industry of yoga, and I don't know why this is, maybe it's just business. Maybe it's when you put anything in a business, there's competition, or we can have this scarcity mindset to think like there's not enough for everybody. Mm-hmm. And we've really been shown through this last teacher training and the one before that, oh my gosh, that we need to keep going so that we can keep perpetuating whatever it is people want to do and how they want to share this, because the more the merrier, especially after a global pandemic. We're going to need more light workers, more healers, more people to listen and hold space and build containers. So can you speak about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, one of the points around that is, and this was possibly our learning, is that I think that when we first started, it was almost like a bravery thing. Like, it's like, oh, well, if Jody will do this with me, then I'm brave enough. Or if I can, I don't know, it's almost like doing it alone feels pretty vulnerable. It can feel kind of pretty showy,
And
maybe.
big, like you've got a
And
lot
it's
of,
a lot to carry.
totally.
And all of a sudden you add that component of collaboration and ease happens. Just this, like, the spread of the risk, the spread of the worry, the spread of the all of the negatives get sort of leveled out and spread between you. And there's this safety net that is built in collaboration. And I mean, we would have moments where one of us would go off script. And so if it was you going off script, I just remember like looking at you and being like, what is going to happen now? I have 100% faith in where this is going. And I'm just as excited to hear where it's happening here. And I think that maybe there's something in that around all of this, that if we can become a more collaborative society, we are no longer thinking scarcity. We're no longer operating from a point of view that, you know, like there's only so much of the pie and you're in competition all the time to see who gets the pieces of the pie or how big each piece is. I think when you come together in collaboration, it's like Fireweed yoga can be good for alchemy and it can be good for Jill Novak yoga, because it makes me stronger when I can test new skills alongside you, because it feels safe to test them when you and I are standing together. Because if my little test doesn't land or fails or whatever, Jody's still there and she's strong. And I think we honed skills together that would have taken us years to advance them or honor them or even know about them had we tried to do it singularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a beautiful experiment. And we always joked that we were taking our own trainings.
Yeah.
And that felt very true for me in that way, just putting that to the test that, you know, and I can be more the type of person that I don't ask for help. I think, oh no, I've chosen this, so I have to do it on my own, or I bought a studio, so I have to figure out like all of the dynamics and
All by
whatnot.
myself.
And that isn't true, you know, and I'm learning that slowly. I'm learning that I am stronger when I soften a bit and when I ask someone to stand with me. That just feels like a really wise way to progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It feels like a wise way to progress. And it knocks down this idea of competition. And it felt like an experiment.
Yeah.
Right? It feels like a bit of an experiment away from the old paradigm, but I like it. Yeah, I do like it a lot. I mean, as you and I write this next module, it feels like we're both, oh, you know, it would be a good idea. Like we are also still writing a training that we want to take. We're writing a program that we would want to take. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, Jody.
Yeah. So we look forward to live students again, hopefully in the next month. That's what they're telling us at this point anyways. So yeah, we'll just
Alchemy Yoga has like a soft start date of July 15th, depending on what is happening in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
If you guys need more information, Jody and I don't update our website unless we have something really exciting to announce on it. So as the summer progresses, you might see some details about the mentorship program that's coming out. And we plan on delivering the teacher training program again, 2022.
In January or wintertime.
Yeah, through the winter season. Yeah. Thanks, Jody, for this chat. I appreciate you being willing to record with me.
No problem.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya.